Welcome to the Successful Life podcast. I am your host, Corey Barrier, and I'm here with Keeta Simone. And so, Keeta, would you like to say hello?
Hello to all your listeners.
Yes.
I'm excited to be here.
I'm excited to have you here. So we were talking briefly before I hit the record button. And I said, I think she mentioned something about crazy energy today, and I mentioned something about how the universe is just really coming together today. And she said, well, what's going on? And so I said, well, let me hit record first. So that's why I want to tell you the backstory, because this podcast is going to be a bit different than what, at least it's going to start out a bit differently. So maybe first, what about your crazy energy? What's going on with that?
I am in an interesting place in my life where at the ripe age of 36, I am stepping in more to my power. And when I started making space for myself, which sounds crazy, right? But when I started making space for myself in my life, things started flowing differently for me. The energy around me, the energy in my business, the energy in my home is all different. And so that's taken me on a path of, interesting things, right? So as you know, I'm in the cannabis industry.
Yes.
And I've recently started edging over to straddle both cannabis and hemp, even though it's the same thing. But we could talk more about that later.
Sure.
So opportunities have arisen for me to really lend my expertise and my knowledge to people that are also doing amazing things. And sometimes when I check myself and I check where I am, after busting my ass for so long, it's like, oh my God, I can't believe, that the universe is blessing me like this, So it's just really living in that power and living in that energy and watching it reverberate to the people around me. So hearing you say this morning,
all right, so you got to dive in a little bit deeper as far as what the universe is doing. Like, this conversation is going to be fucking killer. I mean, it is. I get so excited right now. So tell me and everybody else about what. Okay, so you said you've made some space in your life. What does that? Can you speak on that? What does that mean?
Sure.
You kicked your husband out? I mean, I'm pretty sure.
No. It's the opposite, right? So, growing up in sort of this mainframe of society where you think success looks like one thing, and realizing that instead of going outward and chasing everything outside of you, success really starts on the inside. And so making space means slowing down, being present, checking in, right? And not being afraid to say no. I think that's the biggest declutter, right? In your energy, in your time space, in your mind space, is being able to say no and being able to tell people that you work with, people that you live with, people that you care about, this is what I need to be happy. And, not making yourself small for other people's ideas and expectations. And when I did that, I was, to be honest with you, I think what was holding me back from that sort of approach was the fear of rejection and the fear of feeling like I didn't deserve. But instead, what happened was when I did that, I got more respect. I got more people wanting to engage with me, and I had more peace in my life. So it was sort of like counterintuitive for me to run around trying to please everybody and not really saying, no, I don't want to do this, or I can't do this, or I'm not coming to your stupid party, and in the end, it really works out to be a more forgiving process and a more enjoyable life for me. Um, so I think that's what making space is all about.
So if I break that down, it sounds like to me that what you've realized is that if you can work on your inner self, so to speak, or that be the making room, meaning like you said, you don't have to say yes to everything, and you have to look out, or you're looking out for self. It's like the oxygen mask. When it comes down, I'm not supposed to give it to you. I'm supposed to put it on me. And guess what? That's what the hell I'm going to do, because if I'm not able to breathe, I can't help you.
Right.
And it sounds like to me that's exactly what you're saying, that you've realized that you've been giving and giving and giving, and you maybe forgot to take care of yourself.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And that goes from a very practical standpoint all the way to your mental and spiritual, right? So I'm a person that I am really into health and nutrition. And I found myself eating double smoked bacon croissant sandwiches in the morning and not eating right, not getting to the gym because I had so much stuff to do, and it just really makes no sense because, like you said, it's that oxygen mask that you have to apply, in different ways that are meaningful to you.
Sure. Actually, I'm actually going through the exact same thing, because when I started, so I got a little bit sick last week, and I had to be put in the hospital for a couple of days, and don't really know exactly what I had. Some kind of something on my stomach. I don't know what the hell it is. So, but once that happened, and after I got out, because I went to the Arte Live Syndicate event, and when I went to that event, you saw part of that, right? So when I went to that event, before I ever went, we didn't expect to go this far into the story, but so when I went, I at first, let's say 4 or 5 days before I went, I had expectations. I was fearful of rubbing shoulders with these people that are all multi-millionaires. I mean, these are like the big wigs of the personal development world. These are all people that I look up to and that I value and that I strive to be in their circle. And I was coming as one of the guys' guests. And so, which put me at a level that I am actually hanging. I had a seat at the table, right? So I had this thought that I was going to have to basically, out myself that I'm not this millionaire and blah, blah, blah. And it was just the story I told myself. So I recognized that, and I told myself before I went, you know what? I'm going to have absolutely no expectations of this weekend. And I'm going to enjoy it. And I'm going to meet as many people as I can. And that's it. And so that's exactly what I did. And I met one guy, which actually ties to you in a second. I met a guy that brokers cannabis. Well, as you know, I've been trying to get in the cannabis industry for the last 3 months. And you know a little bit about the story. I busted my ass and learned a whole bunch of stuff. And the guys that I was going to go into business with, it didn't work out.
Right.
Which universe, I totally, it is what it is. It wasn't what I wanted to hear at the time, but I knew there was a reason for it. So fast forward, I meet this guy, and he says, why don't you broker hemp? And I said, well, first of all, I don't know how that works. And he said, dude, he was like, I've listened to he listened to me for, I don't know how long on the phone. He said, I've listened to you. I've seen how you work. He said, this is exactly what you're made for. Siri somehow picked up. I don't even know how the hell that happened. He said, so, you could be so good at this. And I said, well, I know some people, you and several other people. And he said, look, it's real simple, you know. This is how the transaction works, and I won't go into all the details. It's not it's not a challenge. It's not hard to do. So when having that conversation with him, something, and that combined with that weekend, there was a shift in me, and a shift that I've been looking for and needing and wanting, but just didn't know really how. And really, I didn't think about. I can't really think about the how, because then you get tied up in whatever. I could go down that rabbit hole all day.
Right.
So after that, actually, let me back up. The day we were leaving, I happened to be standing in the lobby with another one of the Arte Syndicate members. And I didn't know he was a syndicate member, but he had two, I've got a tattoo sleeve, and he had two tattoo sleeves. So I struck a conversation with him. And okay, I didn't know if something cut off. Anyway, so I said, hey, I would love for you, after I got to know him a little bit better, I said, would you like to be on my podcast? I'm starting a podcast. And the reality is this mic was sitting here for 3 months. And I just told myself, well, I haven't set it up. I don't really know, Well, so now I put myself in a position where I didn't have any choice, because I wasn't about to let this guy down. I mean, I figured out, well, he's got 100,000 followers.
Oh, wow.
So I'm like, I definitely am not letting him down, because that would be stupid. So the universe is starting to work, right? Everything is starting to come together. And then after I had that conversation with Wes, I thought, I'm just gonna fire off messages to people that I value and see how many people I can get to say yes. And my success rate has been unreal.
Wow.
I mean, the amount of people and the names of some of the people that I've had on my show so far, that I have barely published 2 of them, they were personal ones, has been so many that I haven't had a chance to even get the first one in order, which is a great problem to have. I mean, I've been working, to your point of not taking care of yourself, I have been going 100 miles an hour interviewing people, scheduling, Zoom, whatever. Mm-hmm. And it's been a lot, and learning as I go, because I don't know I do now how to do this to an extent. So one of the people that I interviewed just last night is Dr. Erin Haskell, and she's at draaron.tv on Instagram. Okay. And the reason I connected with her was because I went to lunch with some other guys at the syndicate, and somebody mentioned her name. I started following her. She's got a podcast, and she's a television show, but she's all about the subconscious mind. She's all about the universe. She preaches everything that I love. Mm-hmm. And she's in recovery. So we have multiple things in common. So I contacted her, and out of the blue, she had no idea who I was. In fact, I asked her last night, I said, how do you think I know you? Or how do you think I got in touch with you? And she said, honestly, I don't know. I assume because you follow a mutual friend, that's how. Mm-hmm. And so I told her, that whatever. I told her how that I got to know who she was. And she said, Corey, it's interesting because when you contacted me, I was like, I don't really know this person. And she said, but something was aligned. Mm-hmm. There was something aligned with you and I that I don't know what it was. The universe said, tell him yes. And so I don't know if that's her exact words, but essentially that's what happened. And so when we got talking last night, we are really aligned in ways that, for example, Nick would kill me. He's going to kill me when he hears this. So, I was in AA for years, right? Mm-hmm. And I got away from AA because I have found a better, for me, a better way of doing it. First of all, I have zero desire to drink. Second of all, I know more about the mind, and I know more about the subconscious part of it, and the patterns and the habit loops. And I figured I don't shit. I'm not saying I've got it all figured out, but I get fed from somewhere else.
Well, you're at another level of growth. AA served its purpose.
Right.
When it was, your gateway
Mm-hmm.
to higher understanding.
That's exactly right.
Yeah.
And so it's very, it's risky talking to somebody else in recovery because, well, I've only talked to 2 other people that really have come out and said, you know what, dude, I'm with you. I totally agree with what you're saying. And she was one of them. And so I asked her last night, I said, what if, would it be great if there was an outlet for people that, had gone through the steps and maybe just wanted to level up, to use your words, and go into a different direction, but stay sober.
Yeah.
And she said, I've been thinking about that for quite some time. And she said, I challenge you to come up with some core values of what that would look like if you had a group. And I said, okay. So today we've messaged back and forth. And since last night, and we started on the phone, I think at 9:30, 8:30. She said, look, this is what I foresee. She said, I've really been thinking about this a lot. We should start this movement, essentially. And I want you to partner with me on it. And the movement is so we can give people an outlet, a spiritual outlet, to stay sober. That people maybe don't resonate with AA. There's a lot of people that don't resonate with AA, and there's a lot of people that do. So those people that really don't have another place to go and to share and to have that camaraderie of people. And so when I say the universe is just crazy, aligning and everything is falling into place, it is unreal. Like this is the kind of thing I've been working towards for the last year, and I just didn't realize it. I knew I was working for something really big, but I couldn't really put my finger on it. And as I look back, I got my NLP certification and my hypnosis certification. I've learned about cannabis. And so with all these things, I've now made connections with the cannabis industry, which I really needed. And now I've made a connection with someone who believes the same way I do about, life, so to speak, after AA. Mm-hmm. And we're going to create something to
a lot of people need.
A lot of people need it. They really, really do.
It doesn't have to be one thing or the other. People that are finding that AA is working for them may also find elements of what you're doing that supplement that,
You're absolutely right.
But, you and I haven't known each other that long. The one thing I can say is what I see in you is this passion to be of service. That's what I really get from your whole vibe and your whole energy. And I think that is why that and Nick, right? Nick was the one that put us together. And Nick is such a sound individual that I knew it was gonna be all good. But when you and I really started interacting, I got that energetic vibe from you that this guy is passionate about life, he's passionate about helping people. And that's something that resonates with me. I moved to Vegas back in 2010, and clear to this day, I remember it was like 2009. I was in my backyard, and I was in North Carolina. This is when I was living in High Point, and I had just finished planting my garden. I just put a garden in, and for months, I had been on this sort of like emotional, I wouldn't call it a disturbance, but there was something in my life inside of me that was telling me, there's more for you. There's more for you to do. And I remember getting this download, if you call it, that was so certain. And it was like, you're going to help people. that's your purpose. And I didn't know how. I didn't know when. I didn't know where to start. But that there was a shift, as you say, that we all get during different times in our life, right? That went from not confusion, and not chaos, but it was more defined, right?
Sure.
And so when I see other people in business and in life that carry that, that energetic vibe of, I'm not here for my ego. It's not really about the money. I need to survive, but it's not about the money. It's about how do I help people? I gravitate to them, as I'm sure you do, right? So,
Yes.
so it's good to feel and to sort of have this knowing that shift is happening in a lot of different places with a lot of different people. I think overall, as a human race, we're sort of fed up with the bullshit and the archaic thinking, and we're ready for something different. And this is nothing against AA, but I think that there processes and ideas that are going through that same sort of development, right? It's like it's worked, but more people are changing their thought pattern. More people are changing the way that they live through this life. And so we have to kind of change our tools to match that. So, good luck to you with that. I think it's going to be an interesting, exciting ride for you.
It is. And so, if you think about, I don't know how familiar you are with AA. And again, I will say this, I am in no way bashing
Sure.
AA because it saved my life, essentially. It absolutely served its purpose. However, you get into the program and it's the program. Notice the word program. So then you are programmed to do X, Y, Z, go through the steps and show up and do the things that you're programmed to do. And so the point is that, where my aha moment is when I realized subconsciously that I'm telling myself, if I say I'm an alcoholic, every time I have to go to a meeting or every time I go to a meeting, I'm reinforcing that thought into my brain, consciously saying it. My brain's hearing that and reciprocating as in, you're still fucked up or broken. And
it's powerful.
Very. And so I thought, I'm not going to do that anymore. I'm not going to say that anymore. So you will not hear me tell you that I'm an alcoholic, because I'm not. I just don't fucking drink. And that's just all there is to it.
Right.
So this is going to cause massive controversy. I am certain of that. But I don't give a shit because it's what I believe.
Right.
I mean, I had this conversation with Nick probably, 12 months ago. He was like, Corey, don't post that shit on Facebook. He was like, do not, He was like, the backlash you're going to get is going to be unreal. And it is, because when people are in AA, the people, they're in it. I mean, they are in it, and that is the only way to do it.
It's the program.
It is.
But here's the thing about programs. It's like, when you said that, I thought to myself, how do you really win the race with that? Like, how do you really win that battle? Is it a program or is it a mindset?
I'll tell you.
A mindset, dude. It's like a shift in your.
Yeah, well, it's a mindless program, because you're meaning you don't have to think, because the group thinks for you, and so you don't grow, right? I mean, yes, you help other people, but you don't really grow. Your mindset stays the same. day after day. And if we can get people to break that loop, that habit loop of always thinking that I'm gonna drink if I don't go to AA.
Right.
That's pretty powerful, and it shouldn't be hard. It really should not be hard. But we have to change people's mindset, and the reality is, the percentage of people, what would you say it is that are successful? What do you think their success rate is?
Gosh, I never even thought about that. That stay clean and sober through that program, I would say maybe 60-75%.
Are you sitting down? 7.
What?
I may be off by a couple of percentage, but it is absolutely no more than 10. Google it.
Wow.
So what does that tell us? Okay, well then that means we're all feeding into a program that has a 7% success rate. That's shit. You got better odds going to Vegas.
If you were going into surgery and your doctor was like, I got a 7%, I got a 10% success rate,
I'd be like,
would you go?
Hell no. But that people don't talk about that. They don't, and I don't know if people don't think about it, but it's facts. And maybe they, sometimes they do talk about it being a low success rate, I think, as a fear tactic, so to speak, to keep you in, not in a malicious way. I don't mean that, but people don't view it the same way I just explained it. They view it as, well, I better follow all the rules or the suggestions so I can be in that 7 or 8 or 9%, opposed to, holy shit, that's not a very good percentage. Like, I don't know if I want those odds.
Right.
And at the time, you know what? The odds were 7% was better than what I had.
Right.
But it's not. But I don't want 7% of anything is not worth shit.
Right. I like that cut.
I got that at the Arte event with my shirt. So I've done all my interviews in my Arte shirt, because a lot of them, yeah, it's really cool. Such a good group. So now that we've ranted on about that, I just, the universe is it's just unreal when you're in alignment with what you're supposed to be doing. Just like this podcast, I swear to you, every single interview that I have done, I've opened the eyes to somebody about something. Every person, usually it's something about maybe their childhood that they just really never thought about and connected the dots. And I'll give you just a quick example, and then I want you to actually talk on podcast. So there was a guy telling me a story. He worked. Do you know who Andy Frisella is?
Say again?
Do you know who Andy Frisella is?
I don't.
So Andy Frisella does the EMF CEO podcast. Actually, he did. I guess he just quit. But he's a massive influencer, right? He's part of the owner of the Arte Syndicate.
Okay.
And so his camera guy and communications guy, I interviewed him the other night, and he was telling me that he had a decision to make when he was in, I think, junior high, I believe is what he said, or maybe it was high school, either one. And the decision was, his parents didn't make a lot of money. And the school that he needed to go to, because there were 2 professional baseball coaches there that coached him, was going to be $8,000 a year. And his parents said, we're going to make it work. And he said, I just couldn't allow them to struggle to pay that money. And plus they would have had to pay like $200 a week for somebody to take me to school, because they couldn't do it because of their jobs. And he said that would have been a massive amount of money to them at the time. He said, and I had to make a decision. Do I go with the team that's probably going to put me in the pros,
Right.
or do I go to the public school and still be really, really good? Well, what happened really, and he didn't realize this until we talked the other night, is you are a product of your environment. And so when he left the winning team, he said, Corey, we won every game. He was like, we just did. He said, when I went to that public school, he was like, it wasn't that way. He said, and it sucked. And it wasn't fun for me anymore. And he said, essentially, it caused me to stop playing baseball. And I said, Tyler, did you ever think about, we all talk about you are the 5 people that you're surrounded by. That's who, or something along the, what I'm talking about. And he said, I never really thought about that. I said, do you realize that the story you just told me was nothing but issues after you made that one decision? And he said, no, I never really looked at it that way. And so the point is that he had he opened his eyes to something that he had going on when he was 12 years old that he never really looked at. So that was the point of the whole damn story. So, I'm about out of breath. So, all right. So tell me, I want to hear your story. I want to hear about you. I want to hear what all you've done, because you've done some cool shit. You got to admit, you have put yourself in situations that a lot of people would love to be in. And you've seen and done a lot of things that are really, really, really cool. So I would like for you to tell the audience about that.
Oh, wow. Well, let me just say, when you asked me to come on this podcast, and I said, sure, what is it about? And you said, oh, well, let's talk about you. My first thought was, I'm not going to be able to hide behind my work. I'm going to have to open up. But just to give you a little backdrop, I'm originally from the Caribbean, born and raised in Trinidad and Tobago on the island. And I'm a 3rd generation female entrepreneur. So small business, innovation, starting from scratch is in my blood, and I love it. I love a challenge. I love putting myself in situations that scare the shit out of me. I hate being afraid. So some of the crazy things that I've done in my life. I came to Vegas one year on vacation with my best friend. It was her birthday. Got a job, went home, packed my shit, and moved to Vegas the same year. And I've been here ever since. Up until that point, I was in hospitality all my life. So, of course, one of the first things that I did when I came here was I got a job on the strip, bartending, right? Of course. And so I was hanging out and partying. And when I was done with that, I was like, okay, well, what do I really want to do? So I floated around for a while, kind of like trying to figure out who I was. And a friend of mine, I would always cook for our friends. And a friend of mine who played professional poker said to me one day, you should do like a meal prep business. So I went into food. Okay. And I love to cook, as I said before. Healthy food is a part of my lifestyle. And my partner was a professional poker player at the time. So his whole group of friends, I don't know if you know anything about poker, but these guys sit at the table for hours, like sometimes 9 hours at a time playing. So it was sort of like the synergistic situation where, I would deliver them healthy food to the table. And that brought me a lot of fulfillment. Being able to share the way that I eat at home and the way that I feed my family with especially people that eat hot dogs and pizza all the time really made me feel good, but I knew that unless I was opening a restaurant or, doing it on a larger scale, like a cafe or something like this, it wasn't sustainable, right? And in my heart was cannabis. In my heart was cannabis because cannabis is the great equalizer, right?
So when you say that, expand
Right,
on that.
right. Cannabis is an amazing plant. It has the ability to heal you physically, and it has the ability, when handled correctly, to set families up for generations, right? Um, and in the past, you know, I was always cognizant of sort of like the impact of the drug war on on the people in my own community. And when it became rec here in Nevada, I had just moved back from California. And my job in California was interviewing surgeons, attorneys, farmers, activists, writers, and I got a real good sense of the industry.
Those people were in cannabis?
In cannabis. I was hosting a cannabis show in LA.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
Okay, so I missed that part. All right.
Yeah, I was hosting a show in LA, and you know, it took me from SoCal all the way up to Laytonville, you know, Humboldt County, Mendocino, and I was just in awe of how these people, despite the legality surrounding the industry, sustained, you know, on their land for generations, and some of them were taking it a step further in employing regenerative practices. And so there was this dichotomy of, you know, the stigma that people were not living up to in NorCal. They were doing totally different shit that you weren't hearing about on TV or in the news. And then on the other side, you know, there's this ongoing advocacy for people of color that, you know, are locked away for their life. And that energy and that thought process of you're going to help people in some way started coming back strong. And so I was at the point where I was like, okay, the food is not sustainable right now. I know I can do it. I know people love my food. I know probably somewhere in the future there's a space for this, but not now. And so I immediately got into the cannabis industry.
Okay.
And I got a job at a facility, helping them prepare their application for a dispensary. And with my background in business, I was able to do that. And, you know, they contracted me to do some other things internally with their business to get them in a better position. So, you know, eventually I went from a contractor position to COO of their business and just totally revamped the project.
So these were, let me interrupt you real quick. So you were helping a company get ready for the league, for rec use. Is that kind of what?
Well, they already had their medical and recreational. So the way that it works in Nevada, let's just step back for a second.
Okay, yes.
Nevada went medical in 2016.
Okay.
And then I believe in 2017, they went rec.
Okay.
I could be a little mixed up about those dates, but that sounds about right. 2 years now for recreational. So what they did is everyone that had a medical license were able to apply for a recreational license in 2017. In 2018, state of Nevada said, we're going to release the applications for dispensaries. So people were allowed to apply for a dispensary. This particular facility already had cultivation and production, and they already had their med and rec licenses. So they wanted to build their portfolio with and become vertically integrated. So that's when I came in to assist them with that process.
Gotcha. Okay.
You know, and I had a full circle moment during that time because they asked me, hey, do you want to help us by applying as a female minority as a part of our business? And I thought about it, and at first I was excited. I was like, wow, because if someone's asking you to do that, obviously they're prepared to give you a seat at the table, right? Because
that would be my guess.
Better. That was not the case.
How our stories are similar. Go ahead.
That was not the case. So, but the process was so long that I had already pivoted and started assisting them with other areas of the business while we were going through negotiations and going through this process. So eventually it came to a point where I had gotten their cultivation turned around. We had completely redone their lab. We had redone some of their flower rooms and stuff like that, and really started upgrading the business. I was working closely with, state licensed labs and chemists and state auditors, and built really great relationships with those people. But then I realized that no matter what I did, I wasn't going to be valued the way that I needed to be valued. And so I ended that contract and I decided to start my own business.
So let me back up for just a second. So
yeah.
If I'm understanding right, they essentially, and I'm just going to say it the way it sounds. Is it safe to assume big business? It was probably a Caucasian group. Is that safe to assume? Can I say that?
There were Caucasian people involved in the business from a management standpoint, and that was a totally different nightmare that I dealt with. And I don't know if it was because they were Caucasian, but the owners themselves were not Caucasian.
But if
color,
okay,
but they were foreigners from another country,
okay.
and looking at their culture and how women are treated in their culture, it wasn't surprising to me when all of this started unfolding. I mean, people were trying to steal my work. People were, pushing me to the back and assuming the fruits of my labor. And so, I just had to make a decision. Is this what I want for myself? Is this the example that I want to set for my son and for other women in this industry? And so that was, the catalyst to me leaving.
Well, the reason I asked the question is because do you feel like it played a major part that you were female and African American applying for the license? Because if I'm guessing right, you probably had a much better chance of getting it. I'm just speculating, of getting the license than maybe they would have, being in wherever they're from or whatever.
So let me say that the application is scored under a few different main headings.
Okay.
The heading for diversity was something like 40 to 60 points out of 100. So there you go.
Yeah. Okay. That answers my question, I think.
That answers the question right there.
Okay.
And so, I really got to this place where I had to decide, was I going to feel sorry for myself? Was I going to stay angry? Was I just going to talk about it? Or was I going to take on the mission of finding other like-minded people like myself, bringing them in, forming my own business, and finding a way to affect change? And I'm sure, as you know, you've been a small business owner before now, and there are times when you say, what the fuck am I doing? Yes. What am I doing? Is this gonna work? And so finally coming down to the end of this year, I started my own business in January. And now we're coming down to the end of the year, and I'm like, wow, usually it takes more time for someone to make these types of advancements and create these types of relationships. But really going into 2020, a brand new decade, a brand new year, I really am so relieved that I made that decision, to step out on my own. And I thank God and I thank the universe that I have remained connected to the ether, to the universe, to the energy in such a way where, I put my wants and needs out there. I set my intention and I act accordingly. Right?
Yes. Intention is so key. And
Yeah.
the fact, and I love that you said, that you stepped out on your own, and especially being female, it's even harder. And being African American makes it even harder, I would imagine. And so, I'm so happy that you're telling this story, because anybody that listens, I don't hope, it will touch someone.
Yeah.
Because there are people that are going to listen to this and be in the position that you were.
Right.
And so go ahead. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to interrupt. I just want to make that point.
Yeah, totally. And, that's why I've sort of decided, it goes back into stepping into your own, right? Not being afraid to tell your story, not caring if the person next to you thinks that you're just, there's just somebody else complaining. Well, no, I'm also doing something about it. Things have been unfolding in such a way. When I flew into North Carolina and I met you for breakfast that morning, that really kicked off an amazing ride for me. First of all, thank you so much for your hospitality. That was great. And, that week or 2 weeks that I spent traveling away from my family, I met some amazing people in Eastern Carolina. There's a community out there of Black farmers that have been on their land since the 1700s.
Wow.
And, it's like, okay, this is what you asked for. So what are you going to do about it? These people are asking for your help. And, learning their history, learning their story, looking around at how beautiful their community is from a physical aspect and the people that live there. I feel so fortunate to have a chance to share my knowledge with them. And as you know, in Carolina, is it like 90 or 80% of the population lives below the poverty line?
I have absolutely no idea.
It is a shocking number of people that are, sort of in limbo now that tobacco, right?
Oh, yes, for sure.
So you have all this land that was traditionally cotton, traditionally tobacco, and people are looking and saying, well, I've got this infrastructure, I've got this land, what's this hemp thing about? How do I make money? How do I grow it? And so being able to sort of educate them on the process, and also I'm learning more about land rights and air rights and water rights and how convoluted the laws have been historically to keep things sort of like in limbo for a lot of people.
Okay.
So going through that process and hearing these people's stories about how, 200 years ago, 100 years ago, these stories were being passed down about how their family members were basically lynched on their own land and their land was stolen from them. It makes it a little more like, of a serious undertaking for me.
For sure.
To educate them on how to create land trusts and how to protect that land and how to turn it into a performing asset instead of a tax liability, right? and then leave North Carolina, and I come back to Vegas. A good friend of mine who happens to be African American, I'm actually meeting him after this podcast. He was working in the cannabis industry for a publicly traded cannabis company and had a similar experience to me, and decided, you know what, I'm going to leave my cushy job and I'm going to start my own CBD dispensary. He started with one store. He just signed the contract on his third location, and he's about to go into Caesar's Palace for, to open his kiosk. And so he came to me and he said, Keeta, I've gotten my business this far, but I'm tired and I'm one person and I'm at a point where I need help in building the rest of this company out. And, there's just such a feeling of gratitude to be in a position where people are coming to me saying, do you mind? Can you share a little bit with me? Because there, for me, there's always sort of been this question in my mind, do you deserve this? Can you follow through and not let these people down and do the work that you feel called to do? So it's sort of like this great synergy or symbiosis of, wanting to help, needing to help, and having the opportunity to do it. Yeah.
That's awesome. So have you made that decision in your mind? Meaning, have you given yourself permission to go and do what you know how to do?
Yeah, I think agreeing to do this podcast was a small step in that direction.
Well, good.
Right? Yeah, I think so. So, we are moving forward in North Carolina. We've applied for the hemp license. We are structuring the parent company and creating the cells within the company and building out a lot of the framework. And I will probably end up becoming a partner in this Vegas retail channel. And then there's also a consumption lounge that I'm working on with, property owner that is African American. And let me just say this, for me, it's not about doing business only with people that look like me. That's not what it's about. It's about doing my share and doing my part to make sure that there's a seat at the table for those people. Some of my greatest teachers in the cannabis industry are white males, right? And so I feel as though it has less to do with your skin color and more to do with your mindset and who you are as a person. And so I think that, for all my colleagues and my counterparts that, sort of have this anger that they're carrying around with them, it's important to realize that we are a product of our environment, like you said earlier. So when you meet someone that, pardon the pun, meets you at a certain level, it's important for us to remember that person is just working with the tools and resources that they have. They're functioning at a level that they know how to function. Right? And less times it's about them just being a piece of shit and more about them, working with the programming that, that they've accepted, that they have accepted. So it's a fine line of being cognizant of that and then being unapologetic about your mission and who you are. And that's what I'm learning to juggle. Yeah.
Well, to your point, it sounds like that you recognize, sometimes you have to meet people where they are.
Yeah.
And not everybody obviously has the same mindset, but I think everybody's capable of having the same mindset. And And when we come across people that maybe are not so like-minded, I think it's safe to say that you should at least give them a shot and help them understand that there is a higher purpose and there could be a better life out there for them, white, black, gray, whatever, it doesn't matter.
Mm-hmm.
But there's also a part that they have to help themselves, and
Right.
if you can't do it for them.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, so anyway, go ahead. Sorry.
No, no, I think that what affects a lot of us, in the decisions that we make day to day, is this false narrative of scarcity and false narrative that if you help the person next to you, then there's less, for you, right? And, what I've witnessed in my professional career in cannabis is a whole lot of unprofessionalism.
Okay.
Right? It is an industry that's new. It's an industry that was really, born out of culture, and so it was really more about personalities and music and art and consumption. And now we're sort of trying to dress it up and make it, it's a commodity. It's going to be sooner or later traded on the stock market. Okay, so in our effort to take it from something that's sort of rugged and bring it into a uniform, way of doing things, it's very interesting the people that you come across. And, working with some of the guys that I've worked with, it leaves me in awe. And I wonder how people that are actually qualified and experienced get passed over for people that aren't. And time and time again, I have to shake my head, because it's like, I want to know how the people that get certain opportunities, right? How did you find yourself in this position? Because number one, you don't know what you're doing.
Right.
At all. Hands down, you have no clue what you're doing. And then on top of that, you treat the people that work for you like, they're not worth anything. So it, for me, surpasses, part of my mission is definitely helping people in my community, like I've said, but it also goes beyond to making sure that this industry doesn't become like a lot of industries where, it's money over people, it's money over patients, it's money over progress. And so woven into a lot of my services are things like regenerative practices, social equity verticals, education, verticals, because like I said, cannabis is the great equalizer. Here's a chance for us to do things differently. Here's a chance for us to reverse and change the narrative that we've been taught, that cannabis is, it's a dirty thing, it's a gateway drug. And the more that we educate consumers and ourselves, the more that we're realizing that that was just a complete lie, right? It was a lie of convenience. It was a lie to keep Black and brown people and white people segregated and apart from each other.
That's facts.
Yeah. So this is big work that we're doing. And now as you step into this, industry, you're going to find people trying to slide you product that's not good. You wouldn't take it, and so it's up to people like you and me to put our foot down and say, no, I'm not touching that. I'm not giving that to sick people.
Right. I do have to wonder, the people. So let's just kind of back up for a second. You said that, there's sometimes you wonder how certain people get to the table, right? Mm-hmm. Because they don't really have the knowledge.
Mm-hmm.
And so there's just a big question how it has to be the money, right? So I interviewed a guy that he is a genetics guy, and he's been doing it forever, and he does it legally. And he didn't do it legally for a long time, but he does it legally now. And he said, it is like, he said it's not, and he's from, do you know where, if I say the holler, or oh my God, what does he call it? The Jefferson State? Jefferson. Does that ring a...
Where is that?
So it's in California / Oregon, I think. I think it's
okay.
And so it's an area not far from Humboldt, I think.
Okay, NorCal. It's in NorCal.
Yeah. And so for whatever reason, they're, his thing is this. He was like, people that have a whole lot of money are coming into this industry because it's cool now. Well, it's always been cool, but now it's the cool thing to do is to be in the cannabis industry. And he said, you got people coming in that have a lot of money and they're ripping people off, and they're making it very corporate when it's not. Go to your point, it's like, this is a culture. This is something, a sacred plant that people value, and they look at it as their heritage, as their, maybe that's not the right word, but sacred, I guess, is the best way to put it. Yeah. And so corporate people could give a shit about that. They don't care about that. They just care about how much money are we going to make. Yeah. And so it's crushing people that have been in it forever and that do it because they love it. And it's knocking them out of their industry. And I hate that.
It's actually fueling the black market.
It is.
Because a lot of activists and people that, like you said, have been in this for years and years are looking at the industry like, you guys are perverting it, you're whoring it out, and it doesn't look anything like we hoped a legal landscape would look like. And so you have these connoisseurs and these people that for them it's more than just smoking weed and looking cool,
right,
that are rebelling, and they're staying in that gray and black market. So what I see happening, and I see it is, I slowly see it happening with these larger companies. Some of these publicly traded companies in Canada and now the US, the bottom's starting to fall. They're hemorrhaging cash.
Most of them are. Most of them.
And yeah, we could say it's bad spending, but it's also because your priorities are fucked up.
Yes. You're not in it to help people.
You're not in it to help people. And everybody and their mama is a master grower. Excuse me, but people that are really master growers don't call themselves master growers.
Hell no.
You know what I mean?
They don't have to.
They don't have to. They don't have to. And here in Nevada, recently there was a spot check on 2 different dispensaries where the state came in and they tested product that was supposed to be clean, and it tested for mold and aspergillus. Oh. Okay, so now this has become more than just throwing your money around. Now it's progressing into, you're throwing your money around, you don't know what you're doing, you're causing problems in your facility, and now you're still sending that product to market, and you're implementing labs and getting the type of results that you want so that you can give patients moldy weed, like
just a turn buck.
So, and, there are things that happen. Like I said, this is a growing industry. We're figuring out processes, we're figuring out SOPs. There are things that can happen in between getting your product tested and then getting it on the shelf, right? And if you're not careful, you can create an environment that will produce mold, even if you had a clean test. But I will say this, there are also facilities and companies that know that they're not doing the right thing. And I think that this new wave of education, what's happened with the vaping incidents, when you have, the type of publicity with the mold, consumers are going to go, okay, well, let me go to Google, because obviously I'm not getting the information that I need,
Right.
and people are going to start educating themselves more. And that's going to call for these big companies and these big brands to drop the charade, get real, or get out. And I think that's what needs to happen.
I totally agree.
Yeah.
Because, for the average consumer, I can walk into any fucking place, gas station, Walgreens, wherever, and buy a bottle of CBD. Now, because the regulations are so, well, hell, there really is no regulation. I don't know what I'm getting. I don't know if I'm getting a bottle of just oil that has nothing in it that says it does. And right now, there's no way for the consumer to know unless they are smart enough to go and look at, okay, well, look at the certificate of analysis. And you're not going to find that in a gas station.
No.
Like, if you buy shit at a gas station, most likely it's going to be something somebody threw together, and it's probably not going to have anything in it.
Right.
I mean, and God knows I don't even know how you make fake stuff like that, but it's really shitty of people. Yeah. And the bottom is going to fall out for those people, because that's how the universe works.
Right.
It does not look kindly on people that do shady shit. Just doesn't.
Yeah. I think one of the biggest things I always tell my friends or anybody that's like looking for, especially hemp or CBD products, first of all, you look at how much is in that bottle, right? If you have a 2 ounce, 3 ounce, 4 ounce bottle and it's got 25 milligrams of CBD in it, you're going to have to drink the whole bottle.
Right.
You need at least 25 milligrams dosage.
Right.
Okay. So, the higher the dosage, the better. What I'm also seeing is these higher dosed products are insanely expensive.
Yeah.
I saw somewhere last night, it was an 8 ounce bottle dosed very well, 1,000 milligrams. Now, that's the type of stuff that, I would purchase. 1,000 milligrams of CBD in an 8 ounce bottle of lotion. You're getting your medicine. Okay. But it was $69. So it's what are we going to do to help facilitate medical patients that really need this stuff? Are we going to call on our CBD retailers to give better pricing to medical patients, because they're not just using it, after they play sports? They need this to get through the day.
Sure.
They need it to function. So, I always tell my friends, know the source, get to know the source. And I have this joke, I'm like, don't buy your CBD from a gas station. Just don't do it.
Right.
Just don't do it.
I totally agree.
So, yeah.
It's amazing to me. But it's coming. The regulations are coming, and it's going to weed out probably 75% of the people that are pushing CBD on every outlet they can possibly push it on.
Right.
It just is. It is. And whatever. They'll get what's coming to them, and or they'll shape up and create a product that's worth a shit.
Yeah.
Who knows?
Yeah, exactly. I think it's normal for this type of industry. It's we're having another gold rush, right? We're having this green rush where people are coming to see what's up, and the market will eventually, like you said, even out, and we'll see better quality products. I hope that there's space for small businesses. There's space for people that have been historically sort of like, left out, small family businesses. So yeah, I think in a few years, it's going to be a totally different landscape. And hopefully we'll have cannabis legal in North Carolina in a few years.
I know, right? So how is that looking? I read something the other day that, federally, maybe they were going to do something, with all the 50 states. I could be wrong. But that would be really cool if, because look, the laws are just so stupid in that, yes, we're going to allow you, my buddy Wes, I said, yeah, we're going to allow you to grow it and to sell it. But if we decide to kick your door in and take all your shit, we can do that too.
Yeah.
And that's what happened to him. And it cost him $1.2 million.
Oh my gosh. So the feds must have came.
They did. And seized everything. In Colorado.
What?
Yeah.
This year or last year?
Last year. So it was the worst year he's ever had.
Interesting. Yeah. So I have been really paying attention to the behaviors that are happening within the federal government. I'm sorry about that.
No, you're fine.
Give me 1 second.
Sure.
And, what's his name? Mitch McConnell recently asked that the USDA, the DEA, and the FDA all come up with their formal position on hemp, and I want to say cannabis as well. So in the interest of my clients, I've been really looking at what's going on in North Carolina.
Okay.
What I'm finding is the state of North Carolina doesn't really have the tools to discern in the field during traffic stops the difference between hemp and cannabis.
Right.
So what they said was, you know what, as of June 2020, all smokable hemp flower is banned.
That is exactly what I heard.
And I was shocked to hear that, to read this, because that's a huge part of the industry. Now, it doesn't mean that you're not going to be able to cultivate hemp flower and perhaps export it to other states, but you're still cutting out a huge demographic of patients that need that product in your own state. So I got on the phone with A&T, and then I also called the ag agent for both county. And I was just chatting with them. Hey, what do you guys think is going to happen with this ban? And, the one time that big tobacco is going to help us is with their interest in keeping hemp flower legal. So even though there's this looming ban, a lot of people don't think it's going to actually go into play. And so my thought was, I have some friends in Israel that came up with an instrument. It's about this big, and it sits on a desk. And what it does is you put your flower in there, and it holds it in like a spindle, and you close the top, and it tests the THC and CBD levels in your flower. And so I was speaking with the gentleman at A&T, and I said, have you guys looked into any instruments for officers out in the field that would allow them to test on site? And apparently, hats off to the state of North Carolina, they have been looking at different instruments, but all of them have been failing, and they're not reliable. So our plan is to get this instrument from my friends in Israel, get it to an independent lab in North Carolina, let them do their third-party testing on it, and hopefully, be of some assistance to lawmakers and the police in, arming themselves with the right tools in doing their job, right? Because the point is, if cannabis is illegal, it's illegal. We're not talking about should it be legal or whatever. It's illegal. So I think it's important for us as an industry to work alongside lawmakers and enforcement in developing the right tactics, right, in keeping people safe.
Agreed. And tell us why it is so important that this instrument comes from Israel. Why is it so? Why? Explain why that's so important.
What's very interesting to me about Israel is that they have taken a very harsh environment and taught the rest of the world how to farm. Okay, so they have also implemented some ancient African farming techniques from further south from where they are. But yeah, they've taken a pretty unforgiving environment and they grow food there. So I think when we look at places like Israel that have been dealing with cannabis for way longer than the rest of the world on a legal level, right. So the testing, the data, the intelligence, it's there, the research is there. And so these guys are way ahead of the game.
Way ahead of the game.
Way ahead of the game. I mean, these guys are so smart. Another friend of mine, he created an instrument and a technology software that it has sensors that basically go into your soil, and your system will then kick in and feed the soil what it needs based on that feedback. So if you're low in nitrogen, you're low in phosphorus, you're more dry over here than you are over here, it's very calculated, and it cuts down cost, it cuts down waste. So looking to our friends in Israel for this type of guidance, I think, is important. So sometimes here in the US, we get so tunnel vision and closed in on ourselves that, we have to realize that Canada, Israel, and other parts of the world are really way ahead of us in renewable energy. Let's look at China, what they're doing with renewable energy and with cannabis. And so as we sort of are still stuck in what I like to call the industrial tech age, we really have to start looking seriously at some of these practices and some of this technology. So my mission is to, get the state of North Carolina to the table to at least consider this instrument that, they've created. But you may also know that the USDA and I believe the FDA have recently released their statements on hemp.
Have they? I don't know.
Yeah. So, one of the things that I saw in there is, I don't remember if it was in the USDA document or in the temporary ban document that would have come from the state. But the state of North Carolina is asking that all hemp farmers test our product in a DEA lab, And so you're looking at the stuff and you're like, there's obviously not enough people in the room that really understand, what's going on. And so I think as an industry, we really need to step up to the plate and have those conversations with our lawmakers. Yeah.
They would have to employ a shit ton of people to test everybody's hemp in North Carolina. Just in North Carolina. Imagine if it was everywhere else. I can't. There's right. The payroll would be so astronomically high. It's not worth it.
And imagine you have 30,000 pounds of hemp sitting in your warehouse, and you're 300th in line to get your shit tested.
Right. What happens? Well, tell us.
Right. You're going to get mold. Probably.
Absolutely. Mm-hmm.
You are going to lose a lot of the terpenes and those, volatile agents that live in your plant, and so your product becomes worth less. And so, that's why it's important to have people that really understand the plant and understand the process in the room, involved in the conversation, um, to really make sense of it.
Yes.
Yeah.
I agree. I totally agree.
Yeah.
And I think some of the, in North Carolina, correct me if I'm wrong, but from what I understand is there is so much biomass that people are still having to wait because there's not enough processing. And with that, you run into the exact same situation as, you get mold or you have to store it somewhere. And you're talking about storing 10,000, 20,000, 30,000 pounds. That's a lot of storage.
Yeah.
In hopes that it doesn't get, some mold or something,
Right.
bugs or anything could go wrong.
Right.
So it's super important to get it from the field to the processing in a timely manner. If you want to keep, like you said, the cannabis, if you want to keep the high grade cannabinoids in the plant and to be able to process it without mold and whatever else could go wrong with it.
Exactly. So, it's sort of like this, I believe the state government is out on break right now. So probably there's going to be no movement till early next year. And, it's sort of like this wait and see game that we're playing. But between you and I and your listeners, I don't think that smokable ban is going to stick.
Shit, no. So, there's no way.
Very unlikely.
No.
And it's very unlikely that the DEA lab testing is going to stick.
I don't think so. Yeah. It's the first I've heard about that, but that's ridiculous. Yeah. I mean, that's the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard.
Yeah. Somebody was smoking and it wasn't him. I wrote that.
Crazy. Crazy. So, yeah, I agree. I don't think either one of them are going to hold. And I think, quite honestly, they've spent so much time trying to figure this thing out. At some point, they got to look at dollars and cents, right? They got to look at the fact that, one, smokable hemp is bringing in tax money. So you're spending tax money to fight off what's bringing in income. I don't, to me, that makes no damn sense.
Mm-hmm.
And
so what they're going to probably, when I heard they were talking about doing was, let's put a ban on smokable hemp until we legalize cannabis, which will be like 2 years down the road from now. So, it's good for us to sort of go through this process and realize, first of all, there's no difference between the two.
Right.
The only difference is with hemp, you got higher levels of THC, right? But if you're breeding hemp, with cannabis, you have higher levels of THC. If you're breeding hemp in the right way, if you let it mature the way that it should, you're gonna get higher than 0.3% THC in that plant.
That's true.
So, it's this whole process of, first of all, calling it what it is, which is cannabis sativa, and calling, psychoactive cannabis what it is, which is cannabis indica. Getting the conversation going around education, I think is going to do well for everybody involved, including our lawmakers. But as you and I know, this is a tax game. It's a money game. The federal government is still structuring their, their approach so that they can get their money.
Of course.
So, let's see what happens.
But it's a win-win for the government. Really, it's a win-win as far as taxes goes. I mean, just in Las Vegas, when you go and buy, I don't know, give me a price. How much of it do you pay? How much tax do you pay on cannabis?
15%.
15?
15% tax.
What is it in California? The same?
I don't know. I can't remember.
But still, that's a lot.
In Nevada, licensed cannabis businesses last year paid $100 million in tax, in sales tax.
Wow.
The year before that, it was 60 million. So we're on schedule. You know, the tax money is coming in, right? And that means states become more independent and less reliant on federal government. That means we can fix infrastructures like roads and schools. Nevada is like almost last in education, right? So all of our money was supposed to go towards, you know, educational programs. Last I heard, it's still sitting in an account somewhere. I don't know if they really understand what to do with it quite yet. But the point is, $160 million worth of taxes in 2 years. And we're not even talking about, we don't even know what 2019 will bring so far.
That's a lot of money.
That's a lot of money.
That's a lot of money to be leaving on the table for every other state that it's not legal in.
Think about that. Think about North Carolina that could really use these jobs. And, you know, my friend that took me out to North Carolina, he's from there. He was born and raised there. And we pulled up to a gas station at one point in transit between one farm to another. And I guess it was around the time the people in the area were getting off work. And we noticed that there were a lot of young men, maybe mid to late 20s, early 30s, that were walking around with these not masks, but you know, the really thin head covers and body covers. And so we were really interested in what, you know, because there was a lot of people kind of like in this after work guard. And we were trying to figure out like where these people were. And one of the locals, one of his cousins told us, he said, these guys work at the chicken farms out here. You know, most of their job is like chasing chickens. And it was very sobering, right? It's very sobering that a young man in his mid-20s, early 30s, like that, when you think of the jobs available in his area, that's pretty much it. It's the chicken farm, and we're talking about remote Eastern Carolina, right?
Right.
And like, you know, a couple other places. So it's really, when it comes back to that idea of being the equalizer, it's really a whole new frontier for people that otherwise, you know, may not have that much of a variety and opportunity.
Right.
You know?
That's true.
I don't know how many of those guys, if I asked them, would be like, yeah, this is what I've always wanted to do. But they're doing it because they're good people and they know that they have to provide for their families. You know what I mean? So you're going to do what you have to do as long as it's legal and it's safe. But yeah, I'm just so excited. And thank you so much for having me so I could share with you and your listeners, you know, some of the inside of what's going on in the industry.
Absolutely. I think this has been fantastic and such, you know, you've shed a lot of light on what's been going on. And I think that's important. People need to be in the know. Yeah. And hopefully that this will get to maybe the right person will hear this that can make that decision that's higher up. Who knows?
Absolutely.
So that's the goal. As long as we can help somebody else, that's what we're here for.
Absolutely.
So, well, I want to thank you so much. Tell us where we can find you on social.
So I'm mostly on Instagram, and you can find me at KeetaSimone. My business vertical is Sweet Sauce, and that's SUITESAUCE.co. That's our website. That's our Instagram handle. So I look forward to connecting with you and your listeners.
Yes, perfect. All right, my dear, you have a fantastic day, and thank you so much for taking the time out.
Absolutely. We'll chat soon.
All right, dear. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.